Ladies and gentlemen of the rock and roll, punk, prog, hardcore, thrash, and heavy metal community, my name is Jason Evans, and this is the Great Metal Standoff, the podcast that pits music's greatest albums in track-by-track combat. Alright everybody, welcome back to Grunge Month. This is the fourth installment of Grunge Month, mind you. And the fourth installment is a battle that Jacob and Salome of the Mosh Pit on Sin team have campaigned for. And plus, in previous podcasts, we have had all of our guests make predictions for today's outcome. We are going to see how much our great nation Australia had to offer to the grunge sound, even if it was in its dying days. To do this, we are quite literally going to look to the youth scene at the time, as the debut album of Newcastle band Silverchair Frogstomp, who at the time of release were 15 years old. And it is going to go one-on-one with Pearl Jam's sophomore album, their second release, Versus. The reasoning for this pairing is better explained by the two who pitched this battle, so let's not waste any time and get to it. Here are the rules to the battle. Number 1. Every album battle will be consisted in track-by-track format by our podcast panel. Each individual panelist will select a winner of each pairing. The winning track receives a point to that individual's tally score. Tracks on albums that go uncontested can receive a tally point if a panelist awards it a gold star. That rule will play into effect later today. Once the battle is over, the album with the highest tally score will receive 1 grand point for that album. If a panelist tally score results in a draw, both albums will receive a half grand point each. And finally, the album with the most grand points will be declared the winner. And here we go. Frogstomp versus Versus. That's not quite alliteration, not quite rhyming, and it's going to get you tongue-tied. But we're going to get used to it as we go along. Let's get straight to it. Roll the audio. Jacob and Salome, you're back in the arena, aren't you?
That we are.
How are we all?
I'm excited for this one. I think for the first time, the last time Jacob and I met was for a very difficult battle between 10, Nevermind, and Dirt. Whereas this one, I think both of us are a little more decided, but on very different scales.
Very much so. I think as we mentioned before, 10, I feel like I want to get some more love for Pearl Jam in there. So
yes, this is actually, I should probably make it a little bit common knowledge here. Frogstomp versus was explicitly both your idea. It was Jacob and Salome's idea, and presented this one too, because I think it was essentially Salome said, we have to have Silverchair if we're going to do a grunge month. Explain your reasoning for that.
Well, I think something we've been discussing for the majority of the Grunge Month metal standoffs is what even is grunge, because it is this subgenre of rock and punk and metal that only stayed around for a very specific period. And for the most part, when we're talking about artists like Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, they all have that connection of being from Seattle, which we kind of spoke about the first time we all came together. Silverchair, of course, are not from Seattle. They're from Newcastle in Australia. But I think a combination of where they are from and when they hit the scene, 1994, shortly after Kurt Cobain passed, there was no denying that grungy element to their music. And then Daniel Johns, with this scraggly blonde hair and baby blue eyes, he did have a little bit of a resemblance to Cobain, which the industry didn't miss that, to the point that Kurt's widow, Courtney Love, said, "Oh, the kid from Silverchair looks like my dead husband and sings like Eddie Vedder, how lame," which we all know an insult from Courtney Love. It's kind of like an insult from the Gallaghers. It's a sign that you've made it. And then from here, the band was given nicknames like Nirvana in Pajamas, Sound Kindergarten, kind of like a nod to the youthful innocence, but their grungy sound. And then, of course, Newcastle is a very industrial city. It's home to the world's largest coal exporting harbour, the Port of Newcastle. And Seattle, of course, is a key seaport city for the Pacific Northwest of America. So even though they're not from Seattle as well, I guess they're from an area in Australia that it was very appropriate to bring that gritty sound of music to. because it is quite industrial. And Daniel Johns talked about how being into music and art, he really didn't feel like he fit in with that industrial stereotype of where he was from in Newcastle. So if grunge was going to kind of dive in anywhere, it's a good spot to do it.
And it was because of this compelling case is why we have Silverchair on the Great Metal Standoff Grunge Month right here, right now. But all that was needed was a formidable opponent. And Jacob was the reason why we suggested Versus. He wanted to make... Jacob, you were certain to make it a Pearl Jam album. Explain your thinking when the Silverchair pitch was made.
So initially I was tossing up whether or not to make it Victology or Versus. And I went to the idea of, okay, which of them is more similar to how Silverchair got, again, that reputation as... Salome said it wasn't looked upon overly heavily at points in grunge. It's very much the same for Versus as Pearl Jam after 10 had been seen as selling out and changing a lot of what they did. And they, as much as it was a very, very successful album, it wasn't received amazingly well by the public. And for that reason, I think it's a little bit underrated, but I also think it's a very fair, if anything, eclectic kind of mix to go up against Frogstomp.
The debut album of people who wrote that album aged 14 and 15. What were you all doing when you were 14 and 15? Because that I've really had to take into account with my thinking on that album.
It makes you feel like you've achieved sod all. I remember when I was about 9 years old, I'm like, well, Silverchair got their first song out when they were 14. I'll do it when I'm 13. And here I am, 25, and I've not done that. My garage band in high school had one song that we did nothing with.
I feel that completely. I remember when I played my first performance in front of anyone on guitar, I was 14. I got back from it. My dad was talking about Silverchair and how they made it big at the age of 14. I'm just sitting there going, cool. All right. I feel good about myself. Thanks for that.
They retired at 31. They had 5 albums between 14 and 31. It's not fair.
Oh,
you got a feel for the guys too. They get thrusted onto a global stage that young, that quickly, and they've. I can't follow up that sentence. It's just such a. I'm not. Is it fair to say exception to the rule, or just a once in a lifetime occurrence? That's a very tough thing to say, but. I feel for. If I was 15, I feel for those guys, knowing that how much they went through at that young age with that much success. Kudos to them. They've made good music, but goodness me.
It even gets to the point where you watch interviews with Ben Gillies, the drummer nowadays, and he kind of turns around and says, like, we all stayed very humble, but now, I think he's in his 40s now. He's like, I can turn around and say we were a bloody good band, and there's not even any arrogance to it. It's just like the fact of the matter. It'd be strange being able to reflect on yourself like that at 40 and it not being an arrogance thing, it being a pure truth, I suppose.
Very much so.
Well, I think it's time to get to the meat of this. So we're starting off with the debut album of Silverchair, the Newcastle teenagers, Frogstomp, going up against the second album of Pearl Jam, succeeding 10, which was, of course, as Jacob mentioned, Versus. We've just explained the preamble. When you pitched me the album battle, what were your predictions going in? Did you think it was close? Do you think it was a no contest? Will we see a draw today?
This is a tough one because it's I'm actually a huge fan of Versus, and I think, as I said before, it's a very eclectic mix, very different sounds in there. Whereas Silverchair got a lot of things right off the bat. And I do wonder whether or not that's going to affect where I sit on certain things. So at the moment, I think I'm leaning towards Pearl Jam, but it could go either way.
Well, for me, I have to do a disclaimer at the start. It is my favorite band of all time. The album means a heck of a lot to me. It came out the year after I was born, so of course I listened to it a lot growing up as a kid. So for me, it could be fairly one-sided. However, that's not to knock Versus off. I love Versus. It has some of my favorite Pearl Jam songs on it. So it's a really interesting pair to put up against each other. And I think you articulated that really well, Jacob, in that Frogstomp it sounds more the same from start to finish, whereas Versus, it's like there's elements of funk, groove, everything buried in there. So it'd be interesting to see Jason, who you might be looking like a deciding vote today.
Which is uncommon sometimes when you're the host. Normally you're the one perpetrating all these conflicts, but no, I think I might be the most objective one here. So let's see how that goes. I'm not too fussed about it this week. I've had harder battles in the past, but I know when I say that I gesture over to the timekeeper, Jacob and Salme are going to get incredibly nervous. So timekeeper, how are you feeling today? That's lovely. That's good to know. Just as cold-hearted as I am. Great to hear. Guess what? It's our 4th installment of Grunge Month, my friend. Please, ring the bell. 4th installment of Grunge Month begins. Thanks, Timekeeper, for that. Let's start off with Nirvana in Pyjamas' first song of album 1, Israel's Son, obviously Silverchair, versus Go, Pearl Jam.
What can I say? What a better name and better start for an album. Obviously, as I mentioned before, this album had a bit of change in how they went about it. They had a new drummer and a new producer. These two helped a lot in the writing process for these songs. This song actually started out as a campfire jam.
We're talking about Go here?
Yeah.
Yep.
This started out as a campfire jam with a Brucey's, who was the drummer at the time, very much just jamming in front of a campfire, and the whole band clicked on it and went, yes, that's a song. And they made that into a song. And it doesn't really show in how it sounds, but with how it sounds, I feel like it's the perfect get up, get into this. This is going to get you hyped for the rest of the album. This song gets you pumped very quickly. It starts with a very, very thick and crunchy bit of drums. It goes into a bit of silence before you get the rest of the song kicking in. Vedder doing his best mumbly, rappy type of thing in the back. I'm not sure if he was doing that on purpose or just whatever. But it's such a fast-paced song. It feels simple. It's not. It very much gets you in. I feel like the lyrics are almost literal. The "Don't go on me." It's saying, "Hey, stay, come listen to this. Check this out." This song is the perfect open to an album. And look, as much as I like Israel's Son, I don't think it goes over me here for this one.
Making the decision immediately, are we, Jacob?
Unless Salome can convince me.
All right. Like I said, I think we should from here on in introduce like that asterisk thing that we've had for the last few weeks, where we just whatever's the winner, it's an asterisk because our opinions do change very frequently, and we're just seeing it right here. But Salome, let's see what you can do to convince both of us.
Well, Jacob certainly made a compelling case. I do want to say before I launch fully into the Israel's Son attack that I feel like Go and Israel's Son, they start out somewhat similar. They both start with very crunchy bass lines. And when you listen to them back to back in particular, like they're almost a similar sort of timing and tempo. Just Israel's Son is kind of a slower version of the same bass line. But Israel's Son, it's a fan favorite for a reason. By the time I was old enough to start attending Silverchair concerts in 2003, it was the only song from Frogstomp they were actually still playing live. And I think the main reason for that is, for one, it really showcases Chris Joannou, the bass player. And for another, that put your hands in the air bit throughout that bridge. It's just the perfect thing to get the crowd going. And similarly with what Jacob has said about Go, I feel like it's the perfect album opener. Like, put your hands in the air, get ready, let's get into it. This is going to be a good one. And I think it's worth noting as well that Chris Joannou, he only learned the bass guitar in 3 months just so he could join the band. He was actually a trumpet player prior to joining the Innocent Criminals, who went on to become Silverchair, aka Nirvana in Pyjamas. Thanks, Jason, for that.
Humble beginnings.
Humble beginnings for sure. The song did come under a little bit of scrutiny in an American legal battle. A young man did commit a series of violent crime, and the lawyer tried to frame the song for inspiring it, to which the band brutally rebuffed. Daniel Johns was making it very clear at this point of his career that for the most part, his songwriting wasn't actually about himself or his own experiences. It was a lot of what he was watching on television. And Israel's Son was one of those songs of something that he saw on the TV. But I think even though he's not writing about himself, he does put a lot of himself into the way that he sings it. It's very, there's a lot of passion. And all controversy aside, it's just a brilliant song. It's one of my favorite bass lines of all time. And it's kind of exactly what you would expect from a bunch of 14 and 15-year-olds jamming, only much, much better.
Okay. You've both been highlighting the bass lines. Here's how I saw it. Israel Sun starts with a fuzzy bass line. Go starts with a funky bass.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to your point, Jacob, it is a fast, frenetic start for Go. Israel Sun, because it's the first time I ever really tried diving into Silverchair at the request of both of you. First thing I wrote down about Daniel Johns, vocalist sounds like a mix of Kurt Cobain, Eddie Vedder, and get this, Scott Stapp, the Creed singer.
There you go. What an interesting mix.
It's a weird hybrid, that, and I didn't know what to think of it at the time. But
it kind of works.
Would it kind of work?
I feel like it would.
I must admit, yes, I'm sure that is a compliment being compared to those three singers at age 15. But you've both given compelling cases. Still conflicted me.
Okay, let's talk about that chorus in Go. How Vedder lets out the "Don't go on me." That part, that one held note, is one of the best ways to introduce someone to an album. Remember, if you got to imagine you're showing this to someone for the first time, and you're going, "Hey, check this out," because this is the first thing they hear. I know if I was hearing a song for the first time, I would prefer to hear Go, something that catches me, something that I'm going to lean into. Whereas Israel's Son, I think it's a great song, don't get me wrong. But I think it's one of those songs that you don't appreciate until the second or third time actually listening to it. Whereas Go is very, 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 very catchy.
Okay.
Did we just have a hot take? Maybe.
To play devil's advocate, Go is very frenetic and it's fun. No, I'm with you on that one, Jacob. But Israel Sun's probably the heaviest of Frogstomp. It's definitely a cruncher.
I can't say any better than that it's a cruncher. But there's a reason that they were still playing it even when they were kind of over that album. Like it gets people going, and put your hands in the air.
All right, where are we all going? Who's the first point?
I'm going to go with Go.
Okay, Go to Jacob.
Israel's Son to me.
Hey dear, I think we're going to start. I think this is the start of a theme here where I'm going to be a deciding factor. Okay. This is probably where I think going into this, I've come to the conclusion that the way I'm going to look at this and the way I'm going to give my points is which of these songs by these bands am I going to listen to again? Which one's more likely? And I think it's, oh God, this is tougher than I thought, actually. This is tougher than I thought.
What's that about? This is going to be an easier battle. One song in and we've got you.
Come on, don't go on me.
Joe up, I'll take asterisk, 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 asterisk. I'll take Go. Asterisk, 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 asterisk.
It's a lot of asterisks.
Yeah, there is a lot. That's a tough one. They're both good starts. Israel Sun's definitely top 3 off Frogstomp. Go, that one's just an all-round good song. Not sure if it's top 3. Maybe it is. We'll find out as we go along. But I'm sure this one would be very tough. Round 2, this would be very tough, I think, for our guests here. Tomorrow versus Animal.
Why are they doing this to me?
This is the one that I hate the most because initially when listening to it and initially when I saw them line up, I went, okay, I love Animal, but Tomorrow is iconic for a reason. But at the same time, Animal is almost as iconic within Pearl Jam's sphere.
Before you go on, Jacob, first thing I wrote in my notes for Tomorrow, the intro predates Creed by 5 years. The problem with that piece of writing there is that Creed's first album, My Own Prison, came out 2 years later. So a bit inaccurate on that case, but no, it's very Creedy. It's very pre-Creed.
Is there a Creed theme starting here?
I think it stops at that point, but we'll have to check. The first 2 songs most definitely, but we'll have to find out as we go along. I think they do stop there, but unless I have puns later on, I don't know.
I like a pun. I feel like I have to go ahead with the inevitable and make a disclaimer that I do think Animal is brilliant, and this is not on paper this was a very easy decision for me, but then I've gone, oh no, it's aggressive, but it's articulated that anger and those emotions so well. Like, I only wish I could do that with my own emotions. But like Jacob said, Tomorrow, it is iconic for a reason. It is the all-time favorite song for so many fans. Just, it just takes it back to where everything started. It was, 3 14-year-old boys just jamming in Ben Gillies' garage, decided on a whim to enter a competition. They've submitted a demo of this song, which, by the way, you can actually listen to the original recorded version. They did spruce it up a bit for the album. The original, it's kind of a lot more raw, and I actually really like going back and listening to that version. And they submitted it with a piece of torn off cardboard and a note that read, "We're not hip hop or rap, we're rock. We love to write and live to play. Pick us, hear what we have to say." And the rest is history. It's a little bit cheesy, but what would you expect from a bunch of teenagers? And I think Jacob kind of sealed the fate himself. He said that Animal was iconic in the sphere of Pearl Jam, whereas Tomorrow's just iconic. And then, musically as well, the guitar work's very intricate, even if it's Creed-esque or pre-Creed.
Emphasis on the intro.
And it goes from that intricate sort of melody in the verses, and then very quickly changes pace to those more classic grungy riffs throughout the chorus. So it's really like peaks and troughs.
I hate to go against Animal, but I reckon I am going with Tomorrow. Don't put it down yet. I might change my mind.
Asterisk.
As much as you don't like the guitar at the start, I actually think it's rather interesting. The beat throughout the whole song, very simple, if not catchy. And something I think Silverchair struggles with a little bit in this album more than anything else is the vocals feeling like they're battling against the instrumentals in parts. This song doesn't have that at all. I feel like the vocals completely complement everything, and they very much flow super, super, super well together. And this song does something I see a lot of songs from this time do very badly. And they managed to go from the softer part of the song, the intro and so on, into the heavier parts of the song very smoothly and very, very well. It doesn't feel like it's jarring. It doesn't feel like it catches you off guard at all. You kind of expect it. And I don't think, look, I'm sure if you was asked me when this had come out, if I was old enough, if I'd be sitting here going, oh, one of the most iconic songs I can think of. One of the most iconic lines from that is "very hard to drink." It's such a weird song for that line alone, and that line catches me so much because it's just, first listening, this is a fun. 47th listening song, time listening, this is a very, very fun song. So I'm going to go with this, but it's very, very hard to look past Animal at the moment because it is a very, very, very funky song with a very strong beat. Again, more mumbly Vedder, which he does a lot in this album, but I'm kind of okay with. The bass is, look, I reckon the bass in this song is probably one of the best basses in all of music.
All of music?
It's that good.
It's that good. I just wrote escalating because it does have that escalating feel to it.
I've got in my notes, the song is super boppy. It's a very easy song to find yourself just tapping along with as part of the funk with it. Even after the first chorus, it goes into a small breakdown. And that breakdown, if that was the entire song, it would be, I dare say, the best song on this entire battle.
The entire battle, you say?
Good breakdown. Like, their breakdowns cannot be understated. They're like, and it's across all of their work as well. It just seems to be something that they really specialize in as a band. Could be another hot take in the making, but they could do the breakdown better than a lot of other artists of that time.
I very much agree. Yeah, no, look, I don't even know if that's a hot take. I'd call that the correct take.
My comparison came from, so this is probably a bit more of a link to previous podcasts I've done, but kind of like with Soundgarden, where I compared Mailman to a grittier Outshined, I kind of compared Animal to a grittier Even Flow, if that makes any sense. Just structurally, I guess. Jacob, I think, is bordering on calling it a hot take, but I just thought it was track 2. It had that groove to it. First thing that popped in my head was like, ooh, a fun, a grittier version of Even Flow, which, by the way, complimentary. Complete compliment.
Yeah, you said it in my mind, and I'm slipping over back to Animal, so you
Am I solidifying your call to Animal? Because I think that might be my final answer,
I'm still in the middle of these two. Either one of these could win. You can catch me on a different day, and it could be either two. So I'm going to give Salome one last chance, see if she can try and sway me over.
I just think, which one would you rather get up in the pub and sing like tomorrow? Like you said, it's fun. It's cheeky, and I don't think it really comes across as cheeky when you first listen to it. But then when you go back over it, and they're like, "Yeah, you're gonna wait till tomorrow, fat boy," like it's kind of exactly what you'd expect from a 14-year-old. But it's so much fun and it's cheeky. But then Daniel Johns wrote those lyrics watching a documentary about a rich guy being asked to go to the poor side of town and complaining about everything. So even though it's quite childish lyrically for that little line, it's kind of attacking the system in a way and those issues. So it's maturely immature.
You mentioned how fun it would be to sing in a pub, and I mentioned that before with the whole hard to drink line. That sells me on it. I could see myself probably singing this 1,000 times before I'd sing Animal in any sort of karaoke situation. This is such a fun, unbelievably good song that I'm going to have to go with tomorrow.
I'm taking Animal.
I'm taking Tomorrow. Love Animal, but I just can't go against it.
Well then, that gives an interesting dynamic before we move on here on the Great Metal Standoff. So 2-0 Pearl Jam for me. Salome, I believe it's 2-0 for Frogstomp.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob, it's a tie. 1-1. I'm sensing a theme.
Let the games begin.
I've done this before.
Fault Line versus Daughter. This one's a bit tricky, personally.
Is it? I think this is one of the easiest ones here. Daughter every day of the week.
Easy pick Daughter. Okay.
I like Fault Line. Don't get me wrong. I think Fault Line's a fine song, but Daughter is one of the most interesting songs on Pearl Jam's entire discography, and it's almost a precursor to some of the softer stuff we'll see later on in their career, specifically in Vitology and in Lightning Bolt even later. This is obviously an acoustic, softer track. The way Eddie Vedder flows with the acoustic, it adds so much. The lyrics themselves, they keep you interested because it is, I think as we mentioned during the 10 Dirt and Nevermind one.
A piece of storytelling.
Yeah, he's a storyteller, not a lyricist. The pre-chorus is amazing. When the beat kicks in finally, it's super, super fun. Vedder in this whole entire album actually seems to have a more chill vibe to him, and this is probably one of the best examples of it because it comes after two fairly heavier tracks, and this feels like a nice shift in taste. And this is where you feel a lot more of a quote-unquote country classic rock feel from Pearl Jam. And
it does have a country timbre, doesn't it?
I actually quite like that. I think country solos, country rock can be very, very, very good.
Well, you do listen to Nickelback.
Okay, I walked into that.
Sorry.
But even the ending of this song is interesting, and it's, as I mentioned before, the country side of it, that solo is very much a country rock solo mixed with a grungy feel, and that solo itself is absolutely phenomenal. There's no way around that. And as we mentioned the lyrics before, the lyrics are very, very dark. I'm not going to get into them because of how dark they actually are. But again, storytelling throughout this is phenomenal. It's so good. This song is one of the best.
What do you got to say, Salome?
I actually made one of the exact same notes as Jacob, which is funny. It was how you put it in Dirt 10, Nevermind, so eloquently, Jason, about Eddie Vedder is a narrator, not a lyricist. And I think, again, there's something a little bit in common with the two songs placed at track 3. They're both beautifully tragic. As Jacob said, Daughter is quite dark. Fault Line is also quite tragic in its theme, but for different reasons. The name's a dead giveaway. It's a song about the magnitude 5.9 earthquake that hit Newcastle in 1989. So the band members would have been about 9 years old at the time that went down. So, Newcastle, it's not the biggest city in Australia by any means. So that event would be huge news. It's not hard to imagine what led them to write a song about it, even though it didn't affect them or their families directly. anything like that happens in the town you grow up in, and it's going to stick with you. 50,000 buildings were damaged, 160 people were hospitalized with injuries, and worst of all, it killed 13 people, including the young boy that Daniel Johns has written about in this song. And it's the lyrics are really simple but really haunting. Like, you'll never see him open his eyes, you'll only hear his heavenly cries. It's very simplistic, but it's quite haunting, especially with those oohs in the chorus. And I think it's the first glance into the versatility of Daniel Johns' voice, which we really don't see, not even really through Freak Show. It's still quite angry and growly, but then in Neon Ballroom we explore more into that. But this was kind of that first take into his, he's more than a kid that got lucky. He can really sing. He's got a great voice. So it was, again, a change of pace, similarly to what Daughter was for Pearl Jam. So interesting placement for sure.
Fault Line for me, I don't know about you, that was a song, I think I preferred the vocal delivery on the verses than I did the chorus. But of course, that melody, the ooh, woo, woo chorus, if we'll talk about that for an impersonation, geez. But that does get ingrained in your head, the oohs and the chorus. But the verse vocal lines are nothing to sneeze at. I kind of prefer it more than the choruses, if I could speak properly. Talk to me about that change up towards the second half of Fault Line, because it's an interesting change up.
Yeah, it is. We were just talking about Pearl Jam's breakdowns, but it just switches pace completely, and I think it reminds you that you're still listening to a grunge album with that like that bit. It just turns from quite melodic to chaotic really quickly.
Could it be symbolic of an earthquake?
Well done. I think so. Newcastle would have been all peaceful, and then all of a sudden, yeah. And do you think the oohs are kind of, they're symbolic of, the cries that keep coming up through the choruses?
Not quite sure.
Not quite sure?
Not quite sure.
That's what I get. They are quite haunting, and like they could be coming from a distance, from a collapsed building, but that's a pretty dark way of looking at it.
Okay.
I'm going to see if I can try and sway him over a little bit more, because I didn't mention the breakdown in Daughter. Again, Pearl Jam, their breakdowns, it goes into a very almost acoustic. It's just Vedder and the drums, which, as I mentioned at the start, the drums are amazing throughout this entire song. And it's just that softer, I don't want to say country, but almost alternate rock, Vedder, just going through that. And for maybe, 20, 25 seconds, it is pure bliss to listen to Vedder, almost in an acoustic situation. It's almost as if you've caught him at a campfire, just singing like that. It's amazing. There's no way to sneeze at that.
So, definitively, you're giving another point to Daughter, aren't you, Jacob?
Yes.
Are we split down the middle against Salma? Are you going to take Fault Line?
I will take Fault Line. The breakdown, the ooze, it's just haunting, and it's the perfect song to be haunting.
This is one I wish I came up with the rule of saying, if we like them both, give them half point each, but we don't play by those rules here, don't we?
We would never have gotten through the first Grunge Month podcast if that was a thing.
Never would have been a full point.
Or Soundgarden and Audio Slave. Or
imagine a third, and a third. No.
Or Bleed Freak versus Jesus Christ Pose. That would we wouldn't.
I'm getting a headache thinking about it. Just no.
Right. What will I seek out before the other? That's the question I'm asking now. What is the song that I will seek out before the other one? And once again, doesn't disservice any of them, because both of them are top tracks. These ones are actually quite top tracks. Oh dear. Is it Pearl Jam? I like the country timbre of Daughter, but I do like most of Fault Line, and the story makes me respect it a lot more. This is what's going through my head right now. Anyone got any more fun facts to help sway me? Or am I on my own here? It's almost becoming like a hot seat kind of thing where I need lifelines now. 3 lifelines, and I've got to use them up already.
Why don't you just use a fault line instead of a lifeline?
Puns
Asterisk.
don't win anything. Hold on.
Asterisk, 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 daughter.
Whew.
Asterisk,
Out on my
asterisk,
own.
asterisk, daughter.
Out on my own in the
3-0.
earthquake.
3-0 to Versus. 3-0 to Frogstomp on Salome's side. It's 2-1 to Jacob. Luckily, I think I'm going to give my point now for the next one. Pure Massacre versus Glorified G. I think Pure Massacre wins this one quite easily.
Really?
Didn't even make me work for it.
That's
Really?
definitely going to be my first point to Silverchair. Definitively.
That's interesting because I actually think Glorified G is better. I like Pure Massacre, but Glorified G is a very, very fun song, especially with how they pronounce Pallet Gun. To me is hilarious and will never not be. But it's also super melodic. It catches me amazingly. The riff throughout the entire song I love. Has that country classic rock feel, more so than Daughter did, I reckon. Veda's vocals,
folky, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
vibe I got.
The vibe I got was that it was the second song in a row that could sound like that could just be a straight up country song.
Fair. That's a fair point. No, but even the breakdown. The breakdown is just it's that same sound. It's the same riff that I just talked about. The amazing riff with Veda just saying something in the background. Like this whole album could essentially be like you're just going through a week with Veda going on crazy adventures or something. And I'll get more into that later.
The magical adventures of Eddie Vedder.
Could be a children's book.
But we also get rare backing vocals throughout this song. You don't hear much of that, but in this song you do hear it, and it's really fun. I don't know if it's even more fun than the actual line "Pallet Gun," and then the solo is great. It's just there's no way to look past it apart from it being just a really, really, really fun song to almost break up how dark Daughter was.
Okay.
You know, the band weren't even sure if it worked when they were working on it. Apparently, feel free to fact check me, but yeah, apparently
I have the same thing.
Like it was a very precarious balance, and maybe it is that precarious balance between it being, you know, quite country, quite funk, but still essentially a rock song.
Yeah, it's a very strange hybrid, but respectable. It is a very respectable song, but it's weird. It's weird when you think there's a hybrid of country. Eddie Vedder makes it an anthemic rock song. Well, maybe not anthemic. You might need to change my wording on that, Jacob.
No, I get what you mean. You're along the right lines of it. I don't know what I'd say instead, though. It is almost anthemic.
Yeah, Vedder makes it a rock song, but there's some funk in the rhythm and country in the guitars. And it is a very strange hybrid, which, yeah, it is quite surprising that it does work out quite well. Whereas, on the contrary, Pure Massacre, I think that's one of the more catchy ones. It's another cruncher. And in the beginning, it has like that mysterious tribal sounding intro. There's a lot of instrumentation that kind of has that connotation of evils lurking around the corner.
It's very fitting for the theme. And it's so high energy. And I don't know if either of you have sought out the video clip, but the video clip's nuts. I think it really works. It's just this, like, it's a gig and people are literally jumping off balconies and stuff. It is a pure massacre to look on, but of course very different as to what it's written about. It's inspired by the Bosnian War. Again, Daniel Johns, it's nothing personal to him, but he said he was, again, watching it on television and went like, this is just pure stupidity. Why is this? It's just senselessness. Why is this happening? And again, he said it in a really, really simple way. People dying for no reason at all. Age is no different if you're large or small. Very, very simple lyrics, but almost catchy, which is strange. And I can't fault it musically either. Again, it started out quite mysterious and very menacing. And then it just launches into that first power chord after that, as you described it, tribal intro. And it's just bang, it's a slap to the face. Absolute, fantastic grunge song. Absolutely love it. Apparently it only took half an hour to write. I wish I could be that productive in half an hour. Like, bloody hell. Just. Whew.
I also did put in my notes, main riff instrumentally sounds like a cinematic fight song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So any MMA fighters out there looking to work on their craft, once they make it to the big time, do walk out to that song. I reckon it might be quite fitting. No, but yeah, my point's going to Pure Massacre. That was one that I did enjoy more than the others.
Interesting. I'm going to have to go with Glorified J.
Respectable. Totally respectable.
Yeah. Again, Glorified G. Nothing
Oh, wow.
against it. No, nothing against it, but I will be going with Pure Massacre.
The bait and switch technique. Well played.
Yep.
That makes it 4-0 for Salome and Frogstomp. So it's on a roll. It is. All right.
Oh, I know.
Okay. Let's see what we got on the fifth battle here. Shade versus Dissident. By the way, Jacob, first thing I wrote about Dissidents. When did Pearl Jam become a rodeo band?
Remember what I said at the start? This is a very eclectic album.
Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
Can't deny that it's pleasing, but still. Jacob, when did Pearl Jam become a rodeo band?
Honestly, at this point, it sounds like this moment they started this album. But I think there's no way to look past Dissident. I'll admit I'm probably not going with it here. Shade is that good a song. But I will try and big it up a little bit. The opening riff through Dissident is just phenomenal, in my opinion. Even if it is a little rodeo-esque. The drums are great here. And I think the softer guitar with a softer Vedder, again, a very relaxed Vedder, is really, really interesting and really catching. The tone of this song throughout the entire thing is brilliant. It very much understands what kind of emotion it wants to drag from you. Vedder and the guitar, at parts they sound like they're having a little bit of like a battle against each other, like one's against the other. But at other parts they come together and it almost sounds almost just like friendship after a battle, I guess rodeo style now. But no, it's just that. And then you've got the guitar in the background throughout the verses, another guitar even, just having a bit of fun, playing a little bit every now and then. You've got, again, that country feel, but the way Vedder sings it doesn't really give it the same country feel that the last two songs have had. The breakdown I like quite a bit. I do admit it's a little bit plain, but it's still good. And again, this is just another really, really, really fun song from Pearl Jam. And this one to me is Vedder. This is the song I can picture Vedder having the most fun singing.
Oh yeah, passionate Vedder is best Vedder.
But
especially if he's aboard a horse in a rodeo.
See, part of this adventure, he's stopped off at the rodeo now.
There we go.
But again, as I did say, it's up against Shade. Shade is maybe my favorite Silverchair song ever.
Wow.
Maybe.
Gee, in my book, that's a hot take.
Oh, interesting. But I reckon the opening is amazing. When it kicks in, the vocals are amazing. It's very top hat heavy at the start. Sorry, hi hat even, and that works for it. The vocals are great again. The flow of the song. Oh, this is one of the best flowing Silverchair songs there are, I reckon. Look, I could go on about it, but I feel like Salome's sitting there waiting to go even deeper than I can.
You were doing an admirable job, though. Shade, it's just a beautiful song from start, middle, and finish. Similarly to Pure Massacre, it has very simple and to the point lyrics, but the difference with Shade is that they're so much more relatable. Not everyone has experienced the horror of the Bosnian War, but plenty of people have felt alone and hurt and like they need to talk to someone but just can't bring themselves to or find the right words. And I love, like, the guitars are so melodic. It's really, really heartfelt, and I think there's a lot of depth to the vocals as well. It just keeps like roller coastering. I like that little solo. It's very like kind of thick guitars, and then that little bridge, and then when Ben Gillies just brings it up again with that. It's one of my favorite songs to listen to in the car, to come in and like tap the steering wheel with that drum like that just brings it into that final chorus, and then it brings that little bit of grit back into it. And the song just does not stop building until that peak. It's like a perfect wave, just cresting, and then bang. I think it was my dad's all-time favorite Silverchair song off that album, actually, when I was a kid. So I did listen to it a lot. Definitely a fan fave.
Now, I have to ask before anything else, you mentioned that solo. I live for that kind of solo. That was perfect in my mind. It does have a soft, I don't want to say classical rock because I've said that a lot, but it does have a softer feel to it. But when listening to it, I couldn't help try and attach it to another band or look for other bands it sounds like. And for me, the band that keeps coming to my mind was the Eagles, of Hotel California fame. I kept getting, it sounds like a solo that they do, and that's not a bad thing. The Eagles solos are some of the best ever, but I couldn't help but look past it and go, ooh. And then, as you said, it goes back into that heavier rock again, and it just catches you back into it, which...
It's kind of like Tomorrow. They just flawlessly transition from the softer to the heavier. It's... Oh, that song gives me goosebumps. This is the goosebump track off Frogstomp.
Oh, right. I just said it was laid back, pretty simple. It was fine. Solo is easy listening. If it was a house band, if it was an acoustic house band at like a restaurant or something like that, I'd be quite happy with it. But and the end, fair play to the ending, that caught me off guard and I quite enjoyed it. But I don't want to sound like an ass, but Dissonant wins for me.
The rodeo song.
The rodeo song wins that one.
The rodeo song beats the house band.
Yes.
Hot take.
And we're comparing a solo written by 15-year-olds to Hotel California, are we, Jacob?
You know what? I am.
Wow.
I really am.
Wow. Silverchair and the Eagles. There we go. There's the link. Okay, fair point. I respect it. Nah, Dissonant wins. Where are you guys going?
Shade.
I'm hiding in the shade.
Shade it is. So I'm on my own here in the Dissonant. But hey, it's all cool, fine and dandy. It's one hell of a debate. Moving on now to Leave Me Out versus WMA. Frogstomp versus. That's going to be very tricky for me to get into my head as we go along. But Leave Me Out versus WMA is next. What are we thinking?
So you guys remember how I was talking about this very much feeling like Eddie Vedder's big adventure throughout the world.
Uh-huh.
The way this song goes with its... I don't want to call it a steel drum. I don't think it is. It's definitely a different kind of drum that they use for this. But the almost jungly feel to it. It does feel like you're walking through a jungle, and as you continue throughout the song, you've stumbled upon like a tribe or something, and Eddie Vedder just happens to be there. And he's just doing his Eddie Vedder best, and it is great because this song, it does have that jungly beat to it. The drums are unique. The guitar is very, 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 very fun. It's admittedly probably not the best song on this album. When it kicks
I'm with
up,
you on that.
It's still very, very good. I did find this song, it did feel a little trippy, but I'm not exactly sure why. I couldn't put my hand on it, finger on it, hand on it, whatever. And one part I super, super, super loved about this song, though, was at some point, there's a lot of chanting that comes into it in the background. And This is part of where that tribal part comes into my mind because it's very, jungly feel, chanting. But that mixed with Vedder doing everything he can, and this strong bass, this unique drum set, this really fun guitar, and what is honestly, again, another part of this really eclectic mix of songs. A very hard to pinpoint what genre this would fall into type of song. So I reckon, just on my immediate thought, this is the better song. I'd love to hear what you guys think about Leave Me Out, though.
Pretty standard.
I want to say about WMA.
Yeah.
I feel like Eddie Vedder has, those groups of people who sit on the beach playing bongos in a circle. I feel like that's what he stumbled across on his adventure.
Righto.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think He Won the Lottery is such a perfect summary of white privilege, and that's particularly prevalent. But musically, I couldn't vibe with it too much. Theme-wise, I loved it. There was some really interesting stuff happening, but you said it was a bit trippy. I think it was a bit too trippy for me.
Interesting. I very much agree with Jason, though, with Leave Me Out being okay. This feels like a filler song to me. It's not bad in any way. It's just put it up against any other song in this album and it feels boring. It feels almost just like it doesn't stand out. As I said, it's all good. It's just that's as far as it goes. It's good. Whereas WMA is unique, fun, a little bit trippy. It feels like it's trying something.
Yeah, I think like Leave Me Out is definitely like the low point of Frogstomp. And it took me a while to kind of grow to love it. It's probably just my super fan in me that got there. Like I really like the heavy quality of the riffs and the drums. They're just relentless. That's what I love about it. I think it's hard because it comes after 5 just top songs in a row. So it did have to go down to that point eventually, I suppose. It doesn't mean that I don't like it. I think it pips it to the post for me just because, like I said, musically, I just don't really vibe with what's going on in WMA, whereas at least Leave Me Out, even if it is a bit stock standard, like it works to me, whereas WMA, like, is that it's fun, but I just can't really, I wouldn't hurry back to go and listen to it.
I'll give credit where it's due. The fact that it drops out and it has that little atmospheric portion in the song before it then hits the end, it confused me and I wasn't a fan, but I think, would you say that that's a fair connotation of loneliness, which connotes to the title, Leave Me Out?
That's actually one of my favorite bits of the song.
Nah, wasn't a fan.
Divided again.
I think, look, the windbreak was fun, but it's only really fun as that surprise, like, oh, wait, what? I thought the song was still going. Oh, wait, no, it is, type of thing. Like, it's cool the first time, and after that, it's there.
Yeah, but at the same time, I know you're a big. How much of a fan did you say you were of WMA? Because I'm only giving it the point just because of the curiosity that came with listening to it, because I think that song drags on for a bit too long. Appreciate the percussive nature, but it goes on for a little bit too long and it's not really a favorite.
I very much agree. I think WMA, if it went up against pretty much any other song, it would have lost. But it kind of stands out because this is very much just, you've got a very unique song that goes on a little too long versus a very arguably boring song that needs to experiment more. And to me, I would prefer something that, catches my interest in, oh, look what this thing's doing special.
Makes you curious.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we're in agreement, aren't we, Jacob?
That we are. WMA for me.
Same, where are we leaning?
You're leaving me out in the dark. Because I'm going to stick to that side. Yeah.
Sticking to Leave Me Out?
Stick with what I know.
Sticking with what you know, no worries. So we'll do a quick score check here. It's actually quite vastly different. And I think, do you know what, Jacob? You might be the one being the deciding factor in this one, surprisingly enough, with my score being 5-1 in favour of Pearl Jam, 6-0 for Frogstomp on Salome's side, where Jacob, as mentioned, it's 4-2. I think you might be the deciding factor here.
Do you remember what happened last time I was the deciding factor? It was you, me, and Tat.
It was Iron Maiden versus Master of Reality. And before we give the results away, be sure to check that one out because that was actually quite a fun podcast. It was the first one we had done, or I had done specifically in about 7 months. So it was a nice streak breaker, to be honest, with you and Tat on board for that podcast.
Let's hope we don't have a repeat here.
Be sure to check that podcast out so you can understand what we're talking about, because plus it's also a really fun conversation. We got Tat to discover Iron Maiden. Moving on now to Suicidal Dream versus Blood. Frogstomp's Suicidal Dream and versus Blood. Let's put it this way. Suicidal Dream is a very mellow, stagnant track, whereas Blood is a very intense song. So we'll get the intensity out of the way first with Blood. Jacob, you'd be the expert on that. Let's talk.
This is an awkward one because I'm actually not the biggest fan of Blood. I think it's good. I don't in any way think it's bad. I think look, I mean, if we were talking about filler just before, this song is very, very much a filler song within Versus to me. It's good. It's not great. There are some things I definitely like about it. Vedder happening to go from the super guttural, almost, I want to say, Alice in Chains style yelling that you'd hear from anyone else. The wah, wah, wah sounds that you find in it, I forget what they're called off the top of my head. There's a busy opening. It's something I kind of like in it. The drums and the bass are still very, very good. The riff in the chorus is heavy and fun. And then it goes back into soft Vedder, which I think, as I said before, I'm a big fan of when Vedder calms it down a little bit too. And somewhere in there was a there's one chord or note or something in there that catches me because it happens for such a short amount of time, but it's so jarring, but good jarring. There's this little note which I think, look, for me, it reminded me very much of Pink Floyd, pretty much any song by them. And it just, that chord, if the song did more of that, I would be all over this song. But again, it's a song that's everywhere. It has a weird ending, and it's not all too interesting to me.
In contrast, Salome, Frogstomp song.
Suicidal Dream. It's actually one of my top songs on Frogstomp. I think similarly to Shade, we talked about how Israel Sun and Pure Massacre are the crunches, whereas those are the ones that kind of just keep building and building, which they're very much setting the foundation for when Silverchair became more experimental and dramatic in later albums. But yeah, this song, it actually went on to be a staple of Silverchair live shows in the mid to late 90s. And again, it was one of those tracks, it wasn't necessarily personal, but it's just really haunting the way that the lyrics just cavalierly discuss such heavy matters. And it's really, really to the point.
Really blunt.
Yeah, it's super, super blunt, to the point that it's just, it just haunts you the way that it's said. But musically, like, it starts and it ends on kind of that same feedback note, but all through the middle, it builds like you described. The first couple of verses and chorus, they're quite mellow, almost all on the one level. And then it builds up again in that bridge. And then it gets to the point where you've gone from having mellow, calm Daniel John's voice to him pretty much screaming it at the end. I think it's a really good scale of the versatility and just maturity as well, when you're remembering that they were 15 years old when they made this song. It's scarily good, but also scary, just plain scary.
I have to agree. This song very much has that mellow tone, as you said, and it does go back up and it does have that heavier bit to it. But I think one thing I do really, really enjoy about this song is the tone and how aware of itself it is throughout most of the song. That softer tone and the drums, along with the guitar working very, very well alongside those vocals. As I previously mentioned, that's a thing I quite like when Silverchair gets right. To me, this is the right kind of mellow song. The sound of it is just perfect to me. I would say this is my second favorite song on Frogstomp, and I hadn't really listened to it much before going into researching for this. I've got in my notes that bridge is really, really good. And as I said, when it gets heavier, it's still very, very good. I think for my choice here, I'd probably going to have to go with Silverchair.
I feel like it's the sound of it, if you were to look at it visually, is kind of like dropping a pebble into a deep pond and it just rippling until it finally laps the shore. It's a very deep pool.
That's a very, very good way to put it, actually.
Where's your point lying, Salome?
I'm also not changing anything from what I've done earlier, and I'm sticking with Frogstomp.
Could this be the first ever pitching of a shutout here on the Great Metal Standoff?
Oh.
I don't think it's happened yet. There have been some comprehensive victories, but I don't think we've had a pitch a shutout as such.
Don't tempt me.
Well, what was that? Don't tempt you.
Don't tempt me. I like breaking a record, but I won't let it. I will not let it affect the integrity of the debate.
Do you know what? I'm probably going to subvert from you guys again, because I did find enjoyment, because I put in my notes for Blood, there's a bit of punk, there's a bit of funk, and it all jumbles into one by around about 2 minutes in out of a 2-minute 50 song. And there was some enjoyment I found in that certain section of Blood. For that reason, I want to take it.
Yeah.
I'm glad Jacob appreciates that. The Pearl Jam super fan likes that argument.
I think that might be where I was talking about before with the Pink Floyd-esque type of chord. There's a part of it that's completely different, and it sounds like it all melds together. So I think that's exactly what you're talking about, actually.
There are some very interesting sonic shifts if you like, for example, listening to really high quality headphones, go across the left and the right channel in the final few seconds of the song, the outro. So yeah, those are the reasons why I would take Blood for that specific battle.
You know what? You've swayed me.
Have I actually?
Oh,
You've swayed me. I know
Wow.
exactly what you're on about. I love this song by Silverchair, but Blood
Oh,
is
about my
so good
pool.
for that moment.
No way. Wow.
I'm going with Blood. Well done.
What about the pool?
How about that? That I did not expect. I really did not. I didn't expect that. The Pearl Jam superfan has been converted by an outsider. Wow.
It didn't take much. I was on the fence with this one.
Okay.
Deary me. Oh, mighty.
So let's take a look. Let's see how that sway affected the scores. So, Salme, 7-0 Frogstomp. For myself, that takes it to 6-1 in favor of Pearl Jam. Whereas that switch up, Jacob, that point that you originally gave Silverchair that has now moved to Pearl Jam has made your score 5-2.
Interesting.
It's slanting.
Quite a bit.
There's a few more songs to go, so let's have a bit more of an in-depth on these. Madman versus Rearview Mirror. I should also preface, Madman is borderline an instrumental track. In fact, let me give you the lyrics right now. Ooh, and Madman. There we go. That's the lyrics analysed. Let's talk about the instrumentation.
Fun fact, there was a rarity version released later on, which I do own, that does have lyrics.
Well, there you have it. What do we think?
Yeah. It's actually really weird hearing it with lyrics after so long of it just being, that song in the middle that has no words. When I was a kid, it was quite a novel thing. It's just a mad song, really, isn't it?
Is it better with or without?
I'm almost... wow. It's not the decision I thought I was coming into the arena to make tonight.
Well, we can dismiss that if you like.
Yeah, I think I like them both for different reasons. But I guess there's a reason they left it instrumental on the album.
Interesting, because in my notes, literally in my notes, the last note I have is this song feels like it's begging for lyrics. It's very, very good instrumentally, but it's not that good instrumentally that I feel like it can stand on its own.
It's a strange space to put an instrumental song, isn't it? Track 8. Like normally, people will put it at the very end as a bit of a novel jam track, or that'll be the introduction. But yeah, chucking it in at track 8, gutsy move, I suppose.
It's interesting, and I feel kind of bad for it because it is such an interesting song to have there. Of course, being the instrumental piece, and it's a good instrumental piece. But there's another song here.
Rearview Mirror, a song with lyrics. Very good lyrics.
Rearview Mirror is so good. I'm just going to literally read some of the notes I've got from when I listened to it. So I love the opening riff here. Drums are great. The song has a weirder tone to it, but it works. When it kicks into the chorus, it's so good. I love the speed. I love the feel of the chorus and how it goes after the chorus. Softer Vedder is back, but I like the song when he sings heavier as well. The breakdown shows off the solid instrumental work, and the bridge or chorus, it's just amazing. And it has this epic feel to it. It's such a fun song. To me, this is one of the better songs on this list.
It is a good one.
And it went on to become the name of their greatest hits album in 2004, which is there a better name for reflecting back on your greatest hits than Rearview Mirror? Probably not.
I wouldn't think so.
Well, once you get to a certain point in your career, the saying goes, I've got more miles in the rearview mirror than I do in front of the windscreen. So, yeah, appropriate. Jacob, in my notes, I wrote gritty instrumentation. This has probably been used for a montage somewhere by some film production. And by the time the lead hits plus solo, the song hits free spirit mode, which, again, appropriate for something called Rearview Mirror, which is probably probably part of the driving playlist that I'll add once this pandemic's over, as we are recording in stage 4 lockdown where traveling is restricted at this present time.
So we've talked about it being like a cruisy drive song, but like apparently, again, feel free to fact check me, at the end of the studio cut, you can hear Abrazy throwing his drumsticks at the wall in frustration because he was under so much pressure by the album's producer when recording this track. And apparently he punched a hole in his snare drum and then threw it off the side of a cliff.
I've
Again,
heard that he had a bit of a tantrum afterwards, but the
Yeah,
cliff surprises me.
but yeah, throwing it off like, and it's not like, if you think like, surely it would be an aggressive song like Blood that would make you throw your drum off a cliff, not Rearview Mirror, but there you go.
Interesting.
Apparently Eddie Vedder had issues with it too. He thought it might be too catchy, which I guess it is catchy, but I just think it's really emotive, and the vocals are flawless. It's a beautiful song, and I think that's why, despite the fact Jason's tempted me to set a record here on the Great Metal Standoff, you know, as much as I love Madman as an instrumental track and its novel factor, the lack of vocals is what is going to get Pearl Jam over the line, just because the vocals in Rearview Mirror are so flawless. The last minute and a half of the song where Eddie Vedder's vocals are carrying over that solo, I just can't go past it.
Yes, that's something I want to hear more of in all music ever, is a solo that continues into a chorus. And when you've got a vocalist as amazing as Eddie Vedder doing that over a solo that's as amazing as Rearview Mirror's solo, it just stands out in such an amazing way. I remember re-listening to all of this. I hadn't heard Rearview Mirror in a while, actually. And I heard that, and I was just flushed back with, holy crap, this is amazing. So, yeah, Rearview Mirror for me.
This sounds like all three of us are on board with each other on this one. I think we're all going to take Rearview Mirror here, aren't we?
First unanimous decision for this entire session, coming in at track 8.
We are unanimous. Rearview Mirror has defeated Madman. Yep, unanimously. This probably is the first and only time we're going to be in full agreement, all three of us, on for the rest of this battle. That's going to be my prediction going forward. I don't know about you, but that's mine.
Because I've actually got a prediction for you. I've got a prediction that the next battle should be unanimous as well.
Okay, let's work that out then. Undecided versus Rats.
Okay, let's look at Rats, and let's look at how funky this song really is. Vedder was interviewed about this song, and he was asked what it means, and he literally said that the song is, in his mind, about how rats are probably more admirable than humans. It's an interesting take. I don't know if you'd call it a hot one.
Pessimistic.
But
it's a very Eddie Vedder thing to say, isn't it?
But I think this song stands out because it's very much, this song to me is, what if you just walked into a jazz club and you found Pearl Jam up there? This is what they'd be playing. This is jazzy, funky Pearl Jam. You get it in the vocals that there's a really interesting lower bit of vocals there that I'm pretty sure backing vocals used that I adore. There's Vedder in this. Without Vedder, this song is amazing. And I reckon without Vedder, this song still beats out Undecided, which is saying something because Vedder adds a lot. And to me, this song is the perfect, funky, jazzy, grungy song to me. I don't think you can look past this.
Salome.
Yeah. I was going to talk about the lyrics to Undecided, but I might be preaching to the converted here. I really like the metaphor of the candles lit at both ends now. It's such an expressive way to discuss, the difficulties of parents splitting up, which is, of course, the main theme. Fortunately, it's something I personally haven't had to experience, but I think it's a really articulate way of how someone would feel that you're just burning at both ends and you're in a rush to make all these decisions that you really don't have the capacity to make. It's actually, Silverchair have 2 songs called Undecided, which is another little fun fact. One was released as a B-side to Abuse Me in 1997, but it's actually a cover of the Master's Apprentice's song of the same name. So just a little bit of background. I know Jacob likes a cover.
I do.
But I just really, really like the kind of like grunty, like Undecided, like towards the end. It's very, very grungy. It's not to take away from the groove of Rats. Like you said, it is a very groovy song. And it's almost like a reggae-like bass line. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
And I think like the closing lyric, Ben, the two of us need to look no more, it is actually an opening line from a Michael Jackson song. So very weird connection there, but I guess he was kind of funky and it's a funky song. So
definitely.
It's closer to me than I think it is for you, actually. I'm a little bit undecided.
I think I'm also going to point out that my notes aren't too nice to Undecided. I very much see it as not filler, but very plain. I feel like this is another song that it melds in with a few other songs and can get lost out very easily.
A bit like
It's
Leave
good,
Me Out,
sure.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think we're
It's-
on the same wavelength then, Jacob.
I
It's
can see
good,
why one would say
but-
that. Again, I think it's the super fan in me that's inching towards it.
Now, I'm going to throw a hot take out here. I reckon Silverchair didn't get a full album of good songs out until they got to Freak or Neon Ballroom. I reckon this album is filled with great songs in between it, but there are enough filler songs and songs that feel like they meld too far in between to really stand up next to those two.
Warm take.
Warm take from the Silverchair expert.
Warm.
Explain why that's warm.
I think it was just a lack of maturity. I don't think the filler songs are bad. I just think that they grew so much between each album and they took it in such a different direction every time.
Definitely.
Even though Freak Show was still one of Silverchair's more grungy albums, even the differences between Frogstomp and Freak Show, they're really, really apparent. So I think that's why we can't judge Frogstomp too harshly. It was just a completely different sound to their later work. So that's why it's only a warm take, because I can understand why someone would say that, but it doesn't necessarily mean I agree with it.
Yeah. And we repeat, they're 15 at this point.
It's very hard to say that they're doing the wrong thing because they've done better than I did.
Yes.
How would every 15-year-old just has a whole album of songs stashed up their sleeve, don't they?
I've legitimately thought in the making of this podcast that if I was their age if I was born in the 80s and it's like 1995 and in high school, I reckon I would think Daniel Johns is the greatest badass in the history of music, just as like if I was his age at that time listening to Silverchair. Like I'm sure it would be. I'm sure. But no, Jacob Ratz wins.
Yeah. And you, Salome, you still going with undecided, or are you?
I've decided to do undecided. It's close.
It's close. Oof. You know what? That somewhat surprised me. Leave Me Out and Undecided are my bottom two of Frogstomp. And just by Jacob's monologue at the beginning of that battle, it kind of sounds like we're on telepathic contact.
Pretty much. They're not bad, but they're not anywhere near as good as the rest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that warm take from Jacob in that last battle, most of this battle is now in our rearview mirror. So now the finish line is in the horizon, and we're going to get ever so close to it as we continue on. We're now at the penultimate song on Frogstomp, but we have 3 tracks remaining on verses. Let's get to them. Cicada versus Elderly Woman Behind the Counter in a Small Town. That's Pearl Jam's longest title, I'm sure. Jacob, you're the specialist here. Is that their longest title?
I'm not 100% sure if it is. It's definitely up there if it isn't. But I think this is the most literal title they have, because this song is literally about an elderly woman who is stuck in her hometown and has been her entire life. It's an interesting idea, and this song, it's another acoustic piece, more acoustic-ish piece.
Yes.
It starts acoustically. It keeps that soft Veta, more hi-hats throughout the entire song. The drums are good. The guitar's good. The feeling and the tone of this song is very, very, very calm. And I had it actually pointed out to me before recording, of course, that this song might share a couple notes with Jeremy from 10, because there's quite a few points in it where you can very smoothly see yourself almost, I guess, transitioning into Jeremy. So that could be why I like this song as much as I do, because to me, after hearing that, I can't help but hear a less dark, less deep version of Jeremy that's done acoustically, which is not a bad thing. That's a very, very good compliment. So I think it's that. This is also such a fun and boppy song as well. The acoustic feel is an interesting little breakup between what we've had in the past. As I said, this is a very eclectic album. So it's nice to have another acoustic piece in this style appear where it is. And it helps the album, I guess, considering it has a few more pieces to go, feel kind of spread out, if that makes any sense. So for my money, I reckon I'm probably going to go with Elderly Woman Behind a Counter in a Small Town. But Cicada is a good song.
Here's the hot take from me. My favourite song off Frogstomp.
Cicada?
My favourite one off Frogstomp. Yep, that's my favourite.
How very indie of you.
It was the first one. Once again, I've only listened to that album front to back once. The first one I searched up After that, the first one I wanted to listen to again was Cicada.
What sucked you in? Like
The
that's what I
riffage was
wanna
more
know.
fun. There was a bit of storytelling about it, and it was one of the more choruses that resonated a bit quicker than the other ones at least in my view.
I think, yeah, when he said growing up is like a civil war, I think we all felt that.
It felt more like a pump up. That one was the one that could pump you up much quicker and much easier than a lot of the other songs, just at least in my view. And like I said, it was just fun riffage, and there was a bit of storytelling, and that it was the one that sucked me in the quickest. It's my favorite of Frogstomp.
It's an interesting one because I might have a bit of a hot take here too, actually. But that chorus, I feel like, is the weakest part of the song. I feel like it's missing something. I feel like there needs to be some sort of change to almost split the chorus up a little bit more. Because
That's a hot
listening
one.
to it, I like the verse quite a lot. I love the verses, but the chorus just sounds like another verse to me, and it almost just gets to a point where it's like, okay, yep, this is starting to drag on now that you've had so many verses, and in my opinion, no real chorus.
That what about that? That kind of brings it all in.
I like that bit, but it's not enough for me, if that makes any sense. This feels like it's missing something. Something small would make this the best song on this entire album, but because I can't feel that, I don't feel that pump up, I don't feel the interest in that, I can't get into this one.
Oh, but that's solo shreds as well. That's like the highlight. Because you got that third verse that it changes it up and it just goes like dun 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 dun, and then it goes into that solo. That is just one of the better solos on this album.
The solo is great, and I will say to this song as well that sorry to cut you off, but I will say the vocals fit with the instrumentals. Again, another thing I like when Silverchair does right.
Oh yes. Here, Jacob. Here. It all blends together quite well on that one. But I think we're differing on that one. I'm taking Cicada hands down. Even though Elderly Woman, I'm not saying the full title because it's just going to get a bit silly towards the end. That I'm trying to work out which one's better, or just from the Pearl Jam's perspective. Is it Elderly Woman or Daughter that's the better ballad? Because they're both really good.
Oh, I think I could probably answer that for you in saying I reckon Daughter's better.
Okay.
But Elderly Woman is very, very good.
It is.
Ooh.
It really is. Simple ballad, but just the catchy line of, they fade away. Just the harmony of that, Hearts and thoughts, they fade away.
I've literally got in my notes how much I enjoy the way he sings the words fade away. The way that's done is just, he could sing that for the rest of what would have been his career. And I would have been okay with it.
Well, to quote Daniel Johns' at this point in time future wife, Natalie Imbruglia, I'm torn. Because I really, really like both songs. This is the hardest battle of these two albums for me since Back at Track 2.
Ow.
I grew up in a small town, and I think everyone who grew up in a small town, that elderly woman was there. Even if she wasn't elderly or a woman, there's just that person in the town everyone knows. And it's really beautiful and melodic. Like, there's gorgeous lyrics, like memories are like fingerprints slowly raising and cannot find the candle of thought to light your name. And my bit that I made the effort of writing down was, I love the way Eddie Vedder sings, I just want to scream hello. That it's so rounded and full of depth. I feel like that point I went, he could front a band of any genre at all, like from that bit. That just proves it. But then Cicada, it's really, I'm starting to feel that, Jason, I wish there was a half-point system here, because it's such a shredder. Like, oof.
What are you going to take? By the way, Jacob, just before you make that final answer, Jacob, you confirming Elderly Woman?
Yeah.
Elderly Woman it is. Increasing that score. It's increasing the score.
Goodness great. Who would have thought I'd be the one on the fence at this point? Like, Cicada is one of my all-time favourite songs, but Elderly Woman is just...
I just said it. It's my favourite off Frogstomp.
It's one of mine too. I see why. Far out. elderly woman, ask me tomorrow and I'll say Cicada for sure. So
Okay. So at this point, at this moment, with the asterisk, the all-important asterisk, elderly woman is Salome's point.
there's like 100 asterisks there, and I can feel my heart cracking because I love cicadas so much. The cicadas are stripping my skin bare.
Oh, part of me's half disappointed because I thought we'd be sharing that one. Ah, well, that's okay.
I'll change it.
Hey,
Oh, hold on, no,
I'm
hold on.
I'm not here to influence. I'm not here to influence. I'm the outsider here. Yeah, I'm the moderator.
Oh,
I'm not doing it. I'm moving on.
I think I have to do it.
Mm.
I'm joining you on the other side of the fence, far out. It's cicada.
Cicada. Final
Oh
answer.
my God.
Going once.
And that,
I feel like
that
I'm an.
point
I feel
just
like
fades away.
Jacob. I feel like an auctioneer at this point. Going once, going twice, going three times. Oh, is that a final answer there? Going once,
is.
going twice. Like they never drop the gavel and say sold until it's just beyond repair.
Oh, I told you, I'll change my mind every 5 minutes on this one. Move on.
Well,
Final
so which are you
answer.
going with?
Cicada.
Okay.
This is the
Final
second time
answer.
you've managed to convince the person who thought they'd be going for it to go for that song.
I'm
Well done.
Hey, I'm the moderator. I have no dog in this fight. You brought this battle upon me. I'm just here to have some fun. I'm here for the fun. Okay. Final song of Frogstomp by Silverchair is Find a Way, and that goes up an equally intense song, Leash.
Oh, this is an interesting one. Fun fact about Leash before we start. Leash has it's sung about the same girl as Why Go from 10. So,
And that was interesting to me.
yeah, you don't really see many songs sung about the same person, at least from this time, travel across albums.
And not for Pearl Jam either. They're usually very varied in the amount of issues or people or places or things that they tackle. With Leash, let's talk about the strong opening, right? Because it is a very, very strong opening to me. How
Straight to the
well
point.
the song flows straight through it. It just flows really well. I think it flows better than a lot of the songs on this entire competition. It's not the best on the album. Again, I think this is a weaker track on the album, but it's still good. The backing vocals again appear, which it's nice to see more of them because they are very, very fun to hear. I love the wah 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 sound, as I've got in my notes. Vedder again kills it because it's Eddie Vedder, of course he does. The bass, the drums, the guitar, the vocals, as I just said. The tone of this song, again, is good. The song feels slower to me, though. And that's something I quite like, considering how heavy it actually is.
Did I hear you correctly and say that you thought Leash was a bit more filler?
Yeah, to me, this feels like a bit more of a filler. I don't want to say filler necessarily.
Bit of a strong
but
word.
it feels like it's on that fence, if that makes any sense. If you took one or two things away from this song, it would be a filler song.
Well, that's interesting.
It's not a single, but it's not filler.
Yeah.
I preferred it to Blood, just because I think, just from a comparison's sake, I preferred it to Blood.
Interesting.
It was,
I preferred it to Blood also. He just utilizes the whammy bar so well.
But not only that, you know how Vedder has that style of when he really lets loose, it's kind of like this soaring sonic picture. It doesn't, I don't think it happens too much in Leash, but it still gives you that uplifting feel through the what's the word? It starts with V. I had the word on me. It's not vitral. It's like, maybe it is vitral, but it's like that vitral nature to it. It has this, I've forgotten the word. My apologies. We'll get back to that.
Yeah, no, I think at the moment, my point is going towards Leash. Okay. But at the same time, there is another very, very good song on the other side of this, which is a song that feels very, very strange on Silverchair compared to what the rest of this album is. Because in my notes, it's fun, more fun than you get in most of the other songs, to be honest, which is not a bad thing. They're all fun. This is a standout. The fun drums, it's good guitar. The vocals feel a little bit weird, but they work. It's an upbeat song. It has very, very good tone. It feels like it understands that. It's simple. The bridge stands out to me. But I did say that this song feels kind of Green Day-esque, and I could see this being used in a early 2000s teen-based movie or something like that. this is very much to me a song you'd find being played at a skate park or a surfy little area in that time frame. So I'm with it, but
I'm going to fact check myself because I think there could be a reason for that sound. I think Find a Way really brings the youthful innocence back. I like for a lot of the album, it's very easy to forget how young they are, but the end of Cicada / the start of Find a Way, you hear the producer mucking around on the drum kit and a bit of banter, and it kind of brings back like, oh, it really is just a bunch of kids. And I'm definitely not saying that in a bad way. You think it would be in a teen movie? I think it'd be great for a car chase.
yeah, I would say that too.
Action. I'm a real fan of that. I was looking at the credits for it because I thought that the reason it might sound a bit more surfy and fun was I thought it might be one of the few songs that was written by both Daniel Johns and Ben Gillies, but I'm actually wrong. This was just Daniel's song. Because Ben was definitely the fun guy in the band in that he was the one that liked to go surfing down at Merriweather Beach. So it's interesting that it wasn't actually written by him now I've fact checked myself. So there you go. I think the similarity between the two tracks, between Find a Way and Leash, is they've both got very anthemic choruses, like, don't give in, drop the leash. Like, they're very anthemic. I think both of these songs would appeal to teenagers going through their rebellious stage. And for that reason, I think that's why Find a Way was one of my favorite songs as a teen. So there you go.
On another plus side, I finally found out that word starting with V I was trying to get. Visceral. Hooray.
Visceral, yep.
Visceral. That is the word I wanted to get. It uplifts you to its visceral nature. Hooray. I got there in the end. In the meantime, Find a Way. A flaily way to clean your act up, to better yourself as a person.
Yeah. It's got a weirdly uplifting feel, as well as that youthful, fun, muck around feel.
As I said, this song doesn't feel like it fits with the rest of the album, but because of where it's set, it's right at the end. It feels like that palate cleanser. You've gone through this adventure with them, and they're just like, okay, go have some fun now. And you're like, okay, I will. Thank you.
Like almost a transition into the following album if you were to go and listen to Frogstomp and Freak Show back to back, because Freak Show, again, it has some very dark songs, but it did have some very cheeky ones, and Find a Way's got that cheeky element that a lot of the other songs didn't because they were that bit darker.
So all in all, Jacob, you went to Leash. Salome, where are you putting your point to?
Ooh, well, I love Leash. Like I said, that wonderful utilization of the whammy bar for those, as Jacob called them, wah-wah sounds. It's raw and it's in your face. I think my inner surfy is leaning me towards Find a Way. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Find a Way it is. I'm taking Leash because of its visceral nature.
Glad you remembered that word.
Yeah. It's always important to, broaden your vocabulary. I remember the phrase vocabulary enricher back in school. So it's always good to, bring that kind of description. I like getting description when talking about music because we're very visual here on Mosh Pit on Sin and the Great Metal Standoff. So, hey, it's all in making it as descriptive as we possibly can. Now, Frogstomp is done, but Versus still has one remaining. You know what that means? It means the gold star is in effect. So, would you seek out Indifference again from Pearl Jam's Versus? Or, a secondary question, if it went up against at least the vast majority of Frogstomp, would it win?
I would say so. This one, in my notes, it has an ambient opening, a really nice bass. It's super soft. That softer Vedder has returned once again. This feels like another part of that magical adventure that Vedder's gone on. This feels like a medieval fantasy movie with like a magical forest feel for quite a lot of it. And that's really good. And for an ending to an album, I think as we just talked about, there's a very, very good way to end an album. And sometimes having it be a very different song is a good way to do this. This song is very relaxing. It's super simple. There is still that ominous feel to it the entire time. And this is just a showcase for Vedder in my mind. This is Vedder being like, hey guys, look how amazing I am. And listening to it, you're like, yeah, you are actually, all right. But it's still simple. It has that, it understands its own tone. And to me, this is one of the better, weirder tracks off this album.
I thought it was
I
the
got it.
second album in a row that finished with a dreamy, vibey song.
I made that
It
note
is.
too. We're finally telepathic. Yeah, I literally wrote in my notes. It's Versus version of Release, which is the closer to 10. I actually got a little bored in the ambient bit, and I was kind of like, okay, get to the point. What's going on? That was just me though. Like it makes it a full circle, like Release did on 10, but I just didn't really care for the ambient bit all that much. I'd have to be in the right mood.
So it sounds
Fair.
like Salome's going no gold star.
No.
It's not getting its good job sticker this time.
I just missed the mark a little bit.
Ah, well. So, Jacob, you said the bonus point is going to go to Indifference.
I like this one. As I said, I like the tone. I like how relaxing it is, and I like how different it is. And even though it does have that similarity to Release, to me, that's a good thing. I liked Release.
I'm indifferent.
I'm pretty indifferent too, you know. Actually, not indifference a bit vague. It's more of a 50-50 kind of thing, just because I could kind of picture that being the soundtrack to when you're, for example, in like the middle of an open space stargazing on a clear night. That's almost the perfect soundtrack you'd want to have. But it just is that going to be a frequent listen? That was what I thought of, and that's probably why I'm leaning no.
I think I'd sort out every other song ahead of it, quite possibly. There's not one I can really. Yeah, I reckon it's the one I'd go back to last.
And it wouldn't defeat anything off Frogstomp in your opinion too, I'm guessing.
Nah, I don't think it would.
Well, there you go. So Salma and I agree. We're not gonna, at least in my view, I would only really listen to Indifference again if it was a good time to stargaze, but I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. So just for now, I think
Eddie Vedder's
still
Campfire Adventure.
Yeah, you know what? This album very much does feel like you've started around a campfire with Eddie Vedder and he's telling you stories. Goes back to how it starts with a breezy song being a campfire jam and this being, as you said, a star watching song. There's a story through this whole album now. I have a bit more respect for it now.
Well, there you have it. Well done, Jacob and Salma. You've just sat through Frogstomp and the second album of Pearl Jam Versus, and you've ranked every single one. Congratulations, you guys.
Cheers.
So we've got all our tally points up. So now it's time to put them all together and make them grand points, hey?
Oh, let's go.
Now, just because I was the moderator here, I think I'll give my grand point first. So the final results stand at Frogstomp with a total of 2 and Pearl Jam with a total of 9. So that's a quite emphatic first grand point to Pearl Jam there. We'll go to Salome. That's also quite a trouncing. It's 10-2 in favor of Silverchair. So I'm guessing that was your prediction coming true, wasn't it?
Yeah, let's be real.
10 points to 2. Wow.
Even I didn't expect it to be that brutal. But there you go.
It might actually even be 10-1 because I haven't factored in the change of points. So
the very quick change of mind.
All right. But anyway, Silverchair, hands down. If I accidentally got the maths wrong, I'll correct that in the outro. Jacob, who has been a deciding factor in previous podcasts, has just made it an easy win for Versus by Pearl Jam with 10 points to 2. There we go.
What can I say?
That gives 2 grand points to 1 in favor of Pearl Jam Versus, thus making it the winner.
Well, this is a lily pad I'm happy to die on. I'll stand by Frogstomp forever.
I like what you did there. This is an interesting one because as much as I do like Frogstomp, I think if this was Neon Ballroom, for example, it would have been a lot closer for me personally. But again, it's still such a good album, and just because I like Versus and more of Versus songs, I can't say, hey, I don't like Frogstomp, because for the most part, I really do.
I think that's the same with me in Versus as well. This is definitely not to say I wasn't a fan of it, because I really, really am. So it's just all the hard truths come out on the Great Metal Standoff.
The hard decisions are made. But hey, let's put it this way. It's probably a moral victory for Silverchair here, because let's keep in mind, we're comparing them to Pearl Jam, and this album came out when they were 15.
It's a fair point.
Moral victory goes to
That's a very
Silverchair
fair
for this.
point.
They got compared to one of the greatest bands that have ever lived, at least in modern music, I guess.
Definitely. And it was the start of a very long story for them as well. It only went up from there. 2 albums before they'd finished high school is just obscene. Like you said, it's one of those once in a generation kind of things.
Yeah. Well, this was a battle that you both had suggested to me to do for Grunge Month. How do you feel now that we've done it?
It's a bit relieving, really. I was going into this a little bit worried that I'd change my mind, or that, there'd be some sort of mystical Silverchair knowledge that I didn't know of, or a song that I super underappreciated. But I'm quite confident with how I answered it, and I feel like it's kind of a finale for me on that one.
I'm just floating out on my lily pad, I guess. No, it was a lot of fun to go back and re-dissect it. Almost 25 years later, just over. And again, 25, 26 years later, they're both still bloody good albums. So really fun to revisit them and pit them against each other.
Definitely.
And if you told me at the start of the year I'd be analysing Nirvana in pajamas and the magical adventures of Eddie Vedder that I want to explore more of going forward, I would be asking you a lot of questions. But here we are, 4th installment of Grunge Month, and that's where we are. Pearl Jam wins, and I want to explore more because the adventures of Eddie Vedder are just getting more intriguing by the day. Salome, Jacob, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
We do, in fact, need to correct an error. Salome's final score was, in fact, 10-1 Frogstomp point. But that does not change any outcome, as Versus, the second album by Pearl Jam, walks away with the win. But as I said in our conversation, Silverchair can walk away with the moral victory, since we just compared their debut album to freaking Pearl Jam, and they wrote that album at age 15. Easily a once-in-a-generation moment in music. Or is it? Here's a question to take away from this. Do you think Greta Van Fleet in 2018 were launched into the position they were similar to Silverchair in 1995? Perhaps that's a question for another time. That's it for our 4th installment of Grunge Month. Join us next time, for the next battle will be our final grunge battle for the month. To be the first to know when that drops, and to tell us who you would have chosen on our Frogstomp versus battle, go to facebook.com/Metal Standoff Pod and hear Jacob and Salome on Moshpit on Sin, Thursday nights, 8 p.m. on 90.7 FM, DAB Plus digital radio, or from your preferred device at sin.org.au, that's syn.org.au. That's all for now. Till next time, metal up your ass!